Hello and welcome. So, since House of the Dragon recently finished its first season, I've been back into Game of Thrones. So, I thought today we could go through some Game of Thrones facts. So, with that, sit back, relax, and let's get started. There is an unaired Game of Thrones pilot. The first pilot, directed by Spotlight writer-director Tom McCarthy, was so terrible it had to be shelved and reshot. We got everything wrong on a very basic level with the writing of it. Show creator David Benioff told Variety. One of the biggest problems: none of the friends he and Weiss invited to watch the pilot realized that Jaime and Cersei were brother and sister, which is a major plot point that we had somehow failed to establish. Catelyn Stark and Daenerys Targaryen were originally played by other actors. In the original pilot, Catelyn Stark and Daenerys Targaryen were played by Jennifer Ehle and Tamsin Merchant, respectively. By the time the show aired, they had been replaced by Michelle Fairley and Emilia Clarke. The Stark kids were different ages in the show than in the books. When the book A Game of Thrones starts off, the Stark children are much younger than their on-screen counterparts. Bran was supposed to be 7, while the actor who played him was 12. Arya went from 9 to 13, while Sansa went from 11 to 15, and Rickon from 3 to 6. In perhaps the most stark difference, if Game of Thrones had stayed completely true to its source material, Robb Stark and Jon Snow would have been only 15 and 14 years old, respectively. George R.R. Martin had a cameo in the original episode. He had a cameo in the original pilot as a guest at Daenerys and Khal Drogo's wedding. When the role of Daenerys was recast, the scene had to be scrapped. Martin later lobbied for a less glamorous, but probably more memorable role: a severed head on a stake. But according to Martin, those severed heads are expensive. So unless I provide my own, I don't get to be a severed head. Benioff and Weiss offered him the opportunity to make a cameo appearance in season 8, but Martin didn't have the time because he was working on The Winds of Winter. Peter Dinklage almost turned down the role of Tyrion Lannister. In a Reddit AMA, Peter Dinklage shared the reason why he wasn't immediately sold on Game of Thrones. I had one hesitation because of the fantasy genre. I told the showrunners I didn't want a really long beard and pointy shoes, Dinklage said. They assured me this character and this world wasn't that. They told me about his complexity, the fact that he wasn't a hero or a villain, that he was a womanizer and a drinker, and they painted a flawed and beautiful portrait of him. So I signed on. Sophie Turner adopted Sansa Stark's direwolf. Sophie Turner adopted Zuni, the northern Inuit dog that played her pet direwolf on the series' first season. Growing up, I always wanted a dog, but my parents never wanted one. We kind of fell in love with my character's direwolf, Lady, on set. We knew Lady died and they wanted to rehome her. My mom persuaded them to let us adopt her. Eating the horse heart was terrible for Emilia Clarke. The horse heart Daenerys had to eat in season 1 was essentially a giant gummy candy. One that, per Clarke, tasted a bit like bleach. It also had pasta running through it to mimic arteries. She ate 28 hearts and apparently did a lot of puking between takes. To make the proceedings even grosser, all the fake blood made Clark so sticky that she got stuck to a toilet. The internet spoiled Robb Stark's fate for Richard Madden. While readers of George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire series knew that Robb Stark's days were probably numbered on Game of Thrones, Richard Madden, the actor who played him, decided to keep himself in the dark about the books as part of his preparation for the television role. But that didn't stop fans or the internet from telling the Golden Globe winning actor that his reign as king in the North would be short-lived. The Red Wedding was based on real historical events. Martin told Entertainment Weekly in 2013 that no matter how much I make up, there's stuff in history that's just as bad or worse. Cases in point: the Black Dinner of 1440, a dinner/trap that ended in the murder of 2 children, and the massacre of Glencoe of 1692, during which soldiers claiming to need shelter due to a full fort slayed their hosts. Martin used both events as inspiration for Game of Thrones' Red Wedding. Game of Thrones weapon masters got inspiration from history. Tommy Dune, who served as weapons master on Game of Thrones, told Mental Floss in 2014 that when he was making weapons for the show, I looked at different periods and different eras: Egyptian, monolithic, and modeled some of the show's weapons on their real historical counterparts. Not all weapons on the show were created equal. The weapons department would make hero weapons for the camera out of modern materials like steel, but they were too dangerous to actually use while fighting. For that, they crafted blades out of either aircraft aluminum, which is strong and flexible and safer to fight with, or if the scene involved stunts or animals, out of rubber. An exception was the arrows. Aside from rubber tips, they were made just like the real thing. Living Language released a conversational language course that will have you speaking like Khal Drogo in no time. The course was crafted by linguist David J. Peterson, who worked with HBO to create the Dothraki heard on the show. The Office's Dwight Schrute influenced Dothraki. In one episode of The Office in 2012, Dwight Schrute was teaching Dothraki and combined an accusative noun and a transitive verb to create the phrase throat rip. Linguist David Peterson hadn't considered doing that, but he liked it so much that he canonized it and called it Schrutian compound. Dwight Schrute isn't the only person who has made an impact on Dothraki. The Dothraki word for eagle, Culver, was named after Stephen Colbert, and the word for good and kind is Erin, Peterson's wife's name. You can learn High Valyrian via an app. In addition to the real languages it teaches, Duolingo offers a class in High Valyrian to enhance your Game of Thrones watching experience. Several characters were played by multiple actors. A handful of characters have been played by more than one actor over the course of the show, notably Dario Naharis, Tommen Baratheon, and his sister Marcella, and Gregor the Mountain Clegane. The most Instagrammed Game of Thrones location is in Croatia. Game of Thrones filmed all over the world, but the most Instagrammed shooting location is Krka National Park, a popular tourist attraction in southern Croatia that's known for its stunning waterfalls. You may recognize the location from several episodes, including Season 4's Breaker of Chains, where Arya and the Hound cross the Riverlands. So that is all for today. If you enjoyed and would like to hear some more Game of Thrones or really any series packs, just let me know. As always, thank you so much for watching.